They just lost to Bro. They lost to B&K earlier on. We don't know how far down this team can fall, and it's hard to hear, but they're going to have to come out with a victory here today to at least help alleviate a lot of the doubts. As the Talia already banned away, the Vi is going to be the answering ban as we jump into Champion Select, and there goes the Sejuani as well. Let's see what Pyoshik is actually going to be on. Of course, the man who has copped a lot of criticism this season,
certainly has. And we'll see what they decide to do here. Like Gwen and Jace is a strategy that a lot of teams have adopted. You could go for the Kalista ban instead. I don't think you want to ban the Fury here, even though owners had some pretty good performances on it. They will opt to ban the Kalista. So we might be looking for a trade of top laners here, and they ban neither. I think the Jace is really scary.
Whoa.
Varus taken away here.
Oh, okay. So now, I mean, Doran was on that list of Jace losses.
Yeah, he was.
So you could imagine that he's probably angling for the Gwen. Let's see what the DN Freaks actually decide to do here. The Jace is going to be banned, and so Dudu, I think, is happy to take the Rumble into Gwen matchup.
That's what I think is exactly what's happening here. Although Faker wants the Azir. Now, I was thinking maybe Punyan grabs the Azir here in the second rotation if they do take the Gwen. But now they could take the Gwen themselves. Will Doran be able to play the Rumble into it, though, is the question we have to ask. And Dudu's performances individually haven't been that great this year, but Doran,
yeah,
I do worry about this choice.
Because also now you can Gwen Xin, and Gwen Xin has been relatively strong from what we've seen. There's also nothing stopping Punyan from taking the Rise, which has also been pretty powerful alongside the Xin Zhao. That being said, when you're staring down the barrel of an Azir, it is more difficult to pick up a Rise, but it is still such a powerful core.
There's kind of a saying that even the most expensive and most powerful tool is not useful in the hands of an amateur, but to take the Xin Zhao away from owner feels like a huge win, but they decide not to go for it and lock in the Fury here instead. This draft looking very interesting here for the DN Freaks. This just allows owner to say, well, thank you very much. Thanks for the freebie. And they look for the Rumble pick into the Gwen. So what looked like a risk here taken by the first pick Azir, I feel like with the Fury lock, it feels fine. Yeah, it feels totally fine here now. See what they want to go for in this mid position. We've seen so much Nefiri Ahri, but it's a lot of magic damage in this comp already and doesn't have a ton of synergy with the Gwen in terms of setting up picks.
Yeah, I mean, you are going to have a fair bit of damage coming out of the Nefiri just in general. Berserker is also then going to be on an 80 carry, so I think you're okay for physical. The Orianna hasn't really worked so far.
Yeah, this pick has a lot of synergy with Nefiri, of course, because she's a great ball carrier and can secure really nice engages. And you know also that with the Rumble here, there isn't really a strong front line necessarily for T1's comp outside of the Xin Zhao. So if you hit the right targets that aren't Xin Zhao, so far, I mean, I guess it could work in theory, but I'm not super sold on it myself either, Atlas.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried. Jin going to be taken away from Gumayushi, and I think this is where things start to get interesting, because is it going to be Gumakeria on something like Azaya Rakan that they've been fantastic on in the past, something they've been well known for, or is it going to be something more akin to a kill lane, trying to go aggressive up against arguably the best part of the DN Freaks, who have also held these picks until last?
Yeah, I think that you're probably on the money with that. The Xayah pick seems really strong here. Jinx, I think, also could be pretty strong with what they put together in terms of scaling. We know Guma's probably not going to play Ezreal, right? And I don't think you need to play Ezreal in this draft, although I think a lot of people would enjoy to play Ezreal here, given the Nefiri and the Gwen and the space you can buy. But that's just not a pick that he normally does go towards.
Yep.
See if he decides to change that up today or not. This final ban is really interesting here because you already have the Varus gone, maybe an Ashe ban. They'll take the Ezreal away from Berserker.
And now we just hope that Berserker doesn't play something like a Corki, which we've seen him gravitate towards in the past. Corki 80 carry just doesn't really fill me with joy, unfortunately. But let's see what he does decide to go with. I think I'm expecting counterpick for life, but instead, the priority Alistar.
Yeah, the priority Alistar, which is a pick that's been bullied in the past, but with the weak 2v2s we've seen from Gumakeria, and just how great Alistar has been as a tier list support, it feels like the most safe blindable support here. And it will just be the Xayah Rakan.
A billion miles away.
We knew this was likely, right? It's super safe into the Fury. And, you know, this is a very T1 draft across the board. As
Tristana.
Tristana, I'm not sure about that.
Hey.
But this draft can be quite explosive if it can get an early lead and you can start getting the resets.
Because like explosive, and she's got the explosive charge.
And the rocket jump.
Yeah,
that's kind of explosive as well.
That's pretty explosive. I like that. There's also a rumble on the other side, so there's even explosiveness. This was actually one of the picks into Xayah back in the day. You know, people used to pick Tristana into it. Of course, you can, with the draw bead passive, scale a lot of range, and so you can really get out of the way of the feathers later on in the game. Berserker can then become a real threat in late game team fights, and you have early laning power. I mean, this used to be a kill lane.
No, it was in the past, and I think a lot of this game here for DN Freaks is going to be about that stable lane phase, how they get out of it. You know, will we see actually Faker feel the pressure of Punyan's Orianna? Such a niche pick right now. Faker's handled this matchup so many times across so many different metas, across so many years. It was often the Orianna on the other side himself. But getting an early lead and then trying to leverage that into early fights for objectives and getting those resets for the Tristana could work out here. My biggest issue that sticks out like a sore thumb, which is the main problem for this comp, is going to be owner Xin Zhao. I mean, the fact that he got it just holds this whole comp together. What otherwise feels like a fairly, you know, risky draft because it's low-range Xayah, you've got Doran on the Rumble. I feel like owner can fix all those problems with just a really well-placed ultimate and good objective control.
Not to mention the fact that it's Purshik on the Nefiri one more time. This is a champion that really needs to make an impact, and he's been failing to do so. See if it works. We dive onto the Rift. All right, going for a different chroma here. Looks like a chicken dog. As far as the hot dog skin is concerned, I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's a healthier variant.
Yep, yep. As the Matador Alistair, we haven't seen that one in forever. Everyone's just wearing the cowbell skin like every time, and so you just don't really see that. Apart from Beryl being like, I'm going to be the cool guy Alistair.
Yeah.
Which I think Lehens also uses. But I haven't seen Matador for a really long time. That's very, very fun.
It does look very old school.
Yeah, but there's something refined about it, you know?
Yeah.
Because this one was the one that it also got a rework because it came out on the, you know, old blocky Alistair that happened initially. Good times. Memory lane once again, as Doran is going to land the first harpoon, connects it onto Dudu, who does have the exhaust. We have kind of seen the flashless Gwen go out of vogue, but he's going back to it here in the Rumble matchup, and I think you can understand why, because Rumble was picked as a champion that can actually hold his own in the lane against the Gwen. I don't know how it necessarily stands right now after a couple of taps to Rumble's laning phase.
Yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily a matchup that Rumble wins the way that he would have a few of his patches ago. They nerfed his Q specifically, which does hurt how much damage he can apply there. As look here into the bottom lane with some of the crazy 2v2s we've had with Gumacaria so far this season, where we've seen some crazy all-ins on both sides. Yeah, I think it's wise to check in and see who does end up getting that level 2 first. Currently looking like Guma and Caria have ultimate control, and there's no way that this Alistair lane is going to take that back here at level 1. That's going to be the case.
Yep, level 2 going to be gained, and the level 1 for this combo is very, very powerful. Gleaming Quill going to allow Gumushi to heal himself back up again, but looks like Berserker and Life are going to be okay hanging out underneath the turret, as Life is just making sure he's keeping that headbutt on cooldown. And Berserker going to do his best to pick up as many of these minions as possible.
Yeah, very annoying sometimes with Tristana to clear these out into a lane like this, but they end up
and also
majority of those.
You can see hasn't actually taken explosive charge yet.
Nope.
And so, sorry, is it explosive charge? It's explosive something, because I get confused because
I think it is explosive charge.
Yeah, it is explosive charge because it's satchel charge that I'm getting confused with
Ziggs, yeah.
Which is the Ziggs situation. Ziggs actually providing a lot of confusion because Mega Inferno Bomb and Super Mega Death Rocket can easily be confused as well, at least in my brain. They belong in similar segments.
So against Closer, Faker did end up falling behind in all 3 games by about 500 gold. I don't think Punyan's on Closer's level right now, but in this matchup you can push advantages if you can get some extra autos weaved in as well. He took Comet and does find himself getting a small lead here over Faker's Azir in this early game. Talking about the exhaust, you get a few resistances in your mist even if the Rumble is inside, and when you have exhaust on top of that, you can just kind of keep pressing Q and take that all in on the Rumble if he does commit to it. So I do like the exhaust for the matchup in that regard. We'll see if it does end up being a point of target though for owner, and that lack of flash could be problematic later on if he does want to push those advantages.
I think Ono was actually seen on that ward as well. So actually, I really like that Pyongyang, instead of playing back, he just plays towards the Nefiri and says, we'll accept this 2v2 if it does happen. You can see Dudu having to play very carefully here underneath this turret, though. And if they do manage to put him behind early on, this could be an absolute disaster. Ward goes in, spots out Ono immediately. He's not going to be able to clear this one out just yet. Still committing to a potential dive, though.
Yeah, Dudu, of course, needs to stack his Q. Doesn't have any stacks right now.
Oh, man, this could be really problematic. Let's see how he does manage to do this. As Doran actually tanking the turret, has to flash to get out of the way, and Dudu has survived for now. But now it's going to be Ona starting this one off. Can he actually tank this effectively? As the answer is no.
Okay, well, it ended up working out. Flashless or no, the exhaust gets a ton of value, forces Doran to flash. They get the trade here of kills. A kill going over to the Gwen, one going over to the Rumble, but this is not going to be that snowball you were talking about that would have been disastrous, as we might be seeing one down here if this doesn't change, as they do swap the lanes back now with Dudu teleporting to the bottom lane. But you're starting to see a small CS advantage stack up, but that was pretty well played by Dudu, all things considered. Really nice redive for T1 as well, to make sure that they at least get something out of all that time spent on the top side jungle. Pyosik just spent the time power farming, finds himself ahead on farm, but didn't get any sort of cross-map action.
Yeah, I actually think it was a little bit unfortunate, because T1 could have gotten themselves a really big advantage there, but the fact that Dudu gets that follow-up kill, the fact that Ona does go down in the exchange really does mean that they're going to have to put in a little bit of extra work to put him down. Teleport is on cooldown for him, though, and Doran does still have his. Might give him a little bit of control, as
he's hiding in this brush. He does have normal flash here. Faker's pretty far up in the lane.
Oh, level 6 is done here as well for Pyongyang. Does have that for a little while. Faker needs one on.
Going for it.
There's the shockwave. Just throws it down where he can. Headbutt Pole in from life as Pyoshik's coming on over. They get the flash out from Ona. Didn't have to use it on that top side of the map. In fact, probably could have perhaps saved his life, as there's a flash out from Pyoshik as well. He's level 5. Another Pulverize comes in as Gumayusi in trouble once again. Explosive charges on in the rocket jump from Berserker, and Gumayusi in so much trouble. There's the battle dance as we've got the flash through from Pyongyang, and Pyoshik takes down Guma. Headbutt to push Carrier back as well. It is going completely ballistic here, and it's DNF that are getting all of the value. Looks like Pyoshik gonna let his former teammates survive and will back away, but man, DNF
this is
finding some angles.
This is the exact kind of way you want to be playing this early game, though, as DNF, to try to get these advantages and snowball the game. They look for the ult onto Faker, push him down. They have that hiding Alistair there. They can challenge Owner. As we'll hold that thought until the replay here, as we are going to have a bit of a contest from Owner. Yep. One grub did, of course, go over to Pyoshik, but he does not stick around to try to smite a second, which I think is wise in this case. Didn't have his flash.
Yeah, able to just get himself over the wall pretty comfortably. I think he did actually have his flash available, but just didn't want to take unnecessary damage. As life is everywhere on this map right now. The needlework coming on in is now Doran. He throws down the equalizer, but it equals nothing, ladies and gentlemen. He's on the floor, and Dudu is now in the lead in the matchup. Yeah,
this is a really big problem here now for the side of T1, as the Rumble's no longer going to be able to try to bully or get big advantages like he was before. Great buffer there on Carrier's attempted knockup. So going back to this, Pyongyang commits the ultimate onto Faker, right? So he's incredibly low. Even though he hits level 6, it's really hard for Faker to actually come over here and commit to this fight while Pyoshik is in the area. And also Berserker comes down here, and then they overcommit to this play without Faker. If Faker is actually here, I think this play makes a ton of sense here by T1, but it's a miscommunication, and Guma is unfortunately just going to get run down despite Carrier's best efforts to save his life here. Carrier then has to flash. Life has the follow-up, knocks him back in. He'll trade his life for it, though.
This was a little bit just suicidal from Life, but then he follows up with this sick Hex Flash play, and so honestly, you miss every shot you don't take, ladies and gentlemen. This is a beautiful metaphor for Life itself and himself at the same time. I mean, you just have to go for it.
I will fault T1 a little bit for, okay, we're maybe going again.
Yeah.
I will fault T1 a little bit for how they played out that skirmish after the ult came through onto Faker, because Faker didn't join and they committed to the play. But the Life play, both of them, though, were his proactive plays, right? He set up the play there in the mid lane, joined Pyoshik to try to put that pressure onto Owner with Pyongyang getting the mid prio, and then had the wraparound onto Doran proactively, where Doran had a control ward in the river, felt safe, did not expect the Hex Flash over the Dragon Pit wall to come and get him. So really great start here for DNF. Only a 500-ish gold lead here, 400 or so, but still, you want to keep that lead rolling when you're running a comp like this.
Oh, 100%. And I also think that DNF are feeling pretty happy with this composition moving later into the game, right? You've got Orianna and Hyper Carry, which obviously always feels fantastic. Here's Life missing a combo. As sometimes you just want to send a message, ladies and gentlemen, and the message is sometimes it don't work.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
Couldn't quite get to the other side of Doran in this case. This pushes him away as Pungyan is in danger.
Yeah, Emperor's Divide going to throw him back as he decides to leave stage right. Faker throwing down a bunch of these Sand Soldier autos into him, but the Dissonance movement speed is enough to try and get him out of there, and it does work out in the end. He is pushed all the way out. Faker does a lot of DPS in that instance, but still, Pungyan survives.
Relieved a little bit of pressure off Doran there on the bottom lane as it requires Life to come up. That was a very scary moment there for Pungyan, though. Didn't have his flash available, but doesn't have to ult or anything like that, so actually has a slight ult advantage over Faker. Does have TP to get back to the lane as well, so it's not a big deal that T1 weren't able to get the kill, but they definitely wanted to trade that one back. It was a really nice set play from Faker and Owner there. That does not pay off, and if we see a collapse here for the Dragon, Faker won't have his Emperor's Divide for that fight.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And Pungyan holding onto it is actually fantastic. It's his main form of defense against Owner, right? If Owner goes in, then he can sort of shockwave him around, get the dissonance down, and you can sometimes even avoid that auto attack if you've charged up the Q. So being able to keep the Xin Zhao at bay going to be an important thing here for this Orianna so that he can keep things pushed up. You can see he does have a decent advantage as Life comes over, misses another Pulverize, and wanders around. You know, he's trampling the ground a little bit and all that sort of stuff. It's great to see. But that was once again a little bit of an iffy situation. Kyoshi going to be able to take down the Drake though, and it's all fine.
Yeah, they still end up getting the Dragon. That feels really good here for the DN Freaks as Carrier once again coming in here a bit alone.
It's all about perseverance, ladies and gentlemen, as the quickness comes down. Owner going to get the knock up though, as Pungyan's flashing away already. Only level 5 onto Life here as Shockwave going to connect onto 2. Owner unable to follow up on the kill on the cow. There are some grubs that have spawned though. The second round likely to go over to T1 as well.
That extra bit of experience Carrier had over Life was so important there. He has level 6, Life does not. They can't actually force the play the way they want to. Life still doesn't have level 6 here. He's so desperate for it for this upcoming Grubs fight. And he's going to need to get a wave somewhere in order to get it, and he just doesn't have one. So this Alistar without level 6 really hurts their chances. Remember, Carrier doesn't have his ult, though, because he used it in the last exchange. But I think with T1 having Faker here, full control of the entry point of this Grubs, it's going to be really hard to fight this one out as DNF.
Oh, here we go. They did manage to get it. Let's see whether T1 just make out like bandits. Try and take just that one, but instead they're looking for a team fight. Faker with his ultimate back up again. And Gumayusi this time thankfully has Featherstorm. Owner comes in. Dudu on a flank angle. Life gonna have to use that ultimate. Does do so here. As Pioshik just taking his Raptors, it looks like these Grubs aren't something they're interested in right now.
Berserker is getting some plate gold here in the bottom lane, so that's a consolation prize. So keeping T1 interested does pay off in that regard, but otherwise, it felt like a big commitment to kind of showing up to a Grubs fight, but not committing there. I think it was the right choice because Berserker, or rather Pungyan, was down ultimate. Berserker decided to stay, but it was a very risky situation there considering Faker did have his ultimate. If DNF had kind of played with their food a little bit more, teasing that they were going to contest Grubs and gotten caught, game might have just fallen on its face right there. But they still maintain that 600 gold lead now over T1's 5 Grubs to 1 here. Does deny the Gwyn. A lot of side lane pressure. The Tristana as well. 2 champions that can destroy turrets incredibly quickly. So a very valuable exchange here for T1.
Being able to get the Dragons, though, I think pretty important here for DNF. I think T1, a win condition with this composition, which does lack a little bit of range. Yes, they've got DPS for days in team fights, but I think DNF do have tools to try and keep them at bay later on in the game in front-to-back team fights with a level 18 Tristana. So I think the late game insurance is there. I think Dragons would have been a great way for T1 to solidify that win condition, and DNF have at least denied the first one. 2.5 minutes on the second, though, and I expect that T1 are going to use their mid-game power to lock that one down, see what the soul's going to be, and then try and utilize that going forward.
Yeah, this comp is very strong in mid-game T1s, especially with the control they have over set objective here on the blue buff.
All right, Life is just getting on in there as Pungyan going to get flashed on by Faker. The Shockwave does connect, and now they do manage to at least go 1-for-1. Or do they? Pioshik trying to get himself out of there, but that is Somehow, Carrier surviving. I have no idea how he lived there. The rest of DNF making their way in, though, as Life once again starting this fight. Over the wall is Carrier finds the knock up there onto Dudu, who now puts down the mist. He's trying to stay alive, but it's not quite working. The needle work! Oh my god, he manages to get one as Ona goes down and Faker is on the floor, and now the rest of T1 are on the wrong side of the fight. Untargetable is Pyoshi's able to take down Carrier, and now Guma with no friends left has nowhere to go.
And they save the turret.
Doran's getting the turret. I don't know whether they're going to be able to save it as he takes a lot of damage from the turret and Pungyan, as now he's going to try and cook him, and there he goes.
Oh, Pungyan, no flash in this exchange, can't get away. He thought he had the damage there to take Doran out. He loses the turret, his teleport, and his life. All in one fell swoop. It looked like maybe it was going to be a nice turnaround there for DNF on the fight. Ends up being another kill going over to T1 in the end. At the beginning of this fight, they collapse onto Pungyan, right? And we see a teleport come through from the Gwen. Doran does not join the fight, does not have teleport, right? So you can see that TP coming through. Pyosik is able to survive and get away, but now T1 are on the wrong side of this fight. Because Doran can't come here, I think this is the right call for DNF to heavily commit in. Guma ults early, though, and so eventually they are going to be able to collapse through here. The needlework ended up being really huge here due to just not having the best time alone here, but is able to still take Owner out. See that little zoom in there as he goes down, but this is a 3v2 fight that T1 will not be able to win. All the while, Doran is pushing that top turret, and that's the tragedy of this, because when we see the respawn of the Orianna, Pingyan decides to go straight up to the top lane here, and Doran already has a ton of heat built up. Takes a lot of damage here from the turret, but once the turret is down here, he's like, all right, I win this auto fight. Sure, your autos are ramping, but mine ramp as well. And I think if Pungyan didn't cancel a few of those, it could have been a little bit closer there, but it is kind of a disaster. Like, he committed TP and still lost the turret and still lost his life.
Do you know what it did, though? It kept everything exactly as it was.
Yeah.
So despite there being that big scuffle, the kerfuffle, DNF being able to win out there, Doran was able to equalize it, grab himself a turret, and first Star Blood actually went over to T1 as well. Of course, 5 Grub's going to be helping out with that one. That is going to help them on their journey towards feats of strength. As there's the Chemtech Soul once again. I can confirm Orcs is in the building, but maybe wasn't paying enough attention.
I will say, though, I feel like this comp here for DNF loves Chemtech Soul. Like,
honestly, with the Gwen and stuff, I'm kind of there with you.
Like, the healing for Gwen is cool. It's whatever.
Shield power for an Orianna comp?
I'm not talking about the individual dragon that they're getting on third potentially to get that soul, but the soul itself is actually super powerful for Gwen that's going to get low and be in that big brawl and is going to be able to get some of that healing back, is just going to do a ton of damage. Same with the Tristana, who's just looking for a reset into a reset into a reset. For T1, it's decent as well here, but in terms of the healing, they're going to have to pick up a lot of that on the way. Not necessarily going to be game-changing. Some Gleaming Quill value and some Scrap Shield, I suppose.
The Rift Maker as well, like once that comes in for Doran.
I mean, that one Doran does have the Rift Maker there, and he is big and in those team fights trying to clean things up with the Q, potentially Azonia's in the mix. Like that does end up being huge for him as well. But yeah, like you said, still a very even game. Just 100 gold between these two as the lead has started to fall away a little bit. And with this attempt on the turret, might be T1 pulling in the lead if they can secure it.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be getting it off this one. Minions have ran away, and then the Rift Arrow will be taken down swiftly with the help of Pyosik. So T1 just getting a charge, trying to get some damage. They really do want to be able to break that one open as soon as possible. It's a composition that doesn't siege very well, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a lot of range. You really want to be fighting around objectives, so it's about setting up for exactly that. And speaking of setup, that's what they're doing here to Dudu, as over the wall goes Ona, and they look to just take down the turret immediately. The knockup does connect, and now Dudu's going to try and get in there. I don't know about that one, as Doran's already flashed away. Huge pulverize as the Gwen does go down, but the equalizer positioned pretty well. Buster Shot gets Carrier out of there with his life, and the Featherstorm will eviscerate the Tristana. This is the kind of team fighting we wanted to see out of T1.
This is exactly what you were talking about in terms of this, as Doran gets 3,000 finally. Was waiting for a while for this one.
Man, we've been talking about that for weeks.
Yeah, but with the bad matchup here for DNF into T1 in terms of their kind of lackluster team fights and their inability to group, it's T1's clutch factor in team fights like this that you always want to trust. In T1, in fact, they use the pressure in mid to pull people away. Now Dudu's isolated here in the bottom lane, and obviously in the initial parts of this, it looks like it's going to be pretty free for T1. The shove comes out here, and then Life gets a big knockup. Berserker goes in, but it's just collapsed on. Keria knockup going off before the Buster shot is so massive. Then the root comes through, and as you said, Guma eviscerates him with a final bit there, but if he gets the Buster shot off and Keria doesn't get that knockup, maybe there's a world. If he has Flash there, which he's about to get back online, maybe there's a world where he has some resets there in that fight, and DNF were able to clean up, but T1 out clutch again. Now it's no longer just DNF with a small lead, it's T1 with a large lead, 2,000 gold off the play.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I really want to talk about it again, but Pungion straight up missing the shockwave.
Yeah,
a little bit of anti-synergy with the Buster shot being pretty unfortunate. You can understand why he was going to go for it, because there were two people there, but then they flew away. And so that would have been Keria dead. There are actually a few implications of that one. We'll see whether DNF can find a team fight where that key ultimate is actually going to work, because that's going to be a really important thing. Pungion really showing some of his rookie tendencies later on in this game. His laning phase, once again, was good.
That's the DNF motto, you know?
Yeah.
We don't lose lane. That's the end of the motto.
Yeah. Yeah. They need to add "or the game" to the end of that, but we just haven't quite got there yet. We don't have the paint. All right, Pyosik going to be able to get out after securing his Raptors. There's at least a little bit of something. As Faker's rotating over, Otacon has spawn. It's going to be the Ruinous as well, which would be really good for DNF if they're able to pick up their dragons that they already have. But I think that's going to be a tall order in this game.
Well, now they just don't have any control at all. Like, so little that, you know, T1 could practically force a take and then look to turn. I don't suggest that they do, but like they're that ahead in terms of map control right now that DNF would have to bring a lot of resources over to deny an Otacon take. They're always going to have to be thinking about that potential, as the vision is now sweeped out completely on that objective. And this is a comp that for DNF doesn't scale the same way. And by that, I just mean it doesn't scale as well, like straight up in terms of what it does later on in the game as T1. Sure, T1 has somewhat of a range problem here, but they have so many ways to mitigate that problem, and vision control is one of them. You know, if you have to walk so close to the brush to even check, you're going to have big problems. As Guma has his IE already, so that's feeling really nice here for the Xayah.
Yeah, and you could imagine that Berserker would be pretty close as far as what his coffers are looking like. T1 going to utilize that reset advantage to be able to take down this dragon. DNF not really up with the timing on that one, and with the state of the game, it makes sense. This is something that DNF are going to have to forego. So the first Chemtech Drake going to go over to T1. Be making their Ruinous a little bit better.
And they had enough info about where DNF were that they knew that this wasn't going to be an attempted trade on Otacon. They also know they just don't, frankly, have the damage to do it with this 1.5 item Orianna. It's just not going to happen. So Faker's in the area, will be able to defend this turret, but they were never really at any risk.
I see Pyosik going a little bit aggressive here, but Keria has the Battle Dance. And this is, like, actually goes on with what you were talking about earlier on. And that is, we've got Owner on Xin Zhao, Faker on Azir, and Keria on Rakan. Like, this is T1's bread and butter with their best performing players at the moment on exactly what they want to be playing. We're starting to see that DNF not really able to do much about it. His life is just going to get cooked, ladies and gentlemen. He could even just be dead right now. As Keria goes in and Faker's able to pick that one up, but they also get Berserker as well. Just sweeps them up underneath the turret. Pungion gets in. It's another unfortunate teleport for this Orianna, as they just have to watch as their turret gets vaporized. And T1, I don't think they're going to give back any control of this game to DNF.
I don't think so either. And, I mean, they have in his ear, not quite on 2 items, but still he has Nashor's first, and he will be able to rip through this Otacon pretty quickly if they do decide to commit to it. Doran does have his teleport, so could join if things get dicey here. He's also tracking Pyosik right now, so I know Pyosik's not going to come over here and look for a smite, but he may look for a kill.
Yeah, he does throw his doggos forward.
But Doran is like, my flash for Otacon, you know, we know Pyosik's not nearby. You guys can press your D key on that one and take it out.
Yep, we take those. Probably what he's going to be saying as Keria moves down towards his bottom side. I don't think he's going to be saving this turret as Dudu's able to lock that one down. Pyosik in position. Keria has so much mobility that he can get out of anything. So we're going to have a look at this one more time in life. Like, what are we doing?
I mean, if you hesitate for even, like, what was that Pyosik W? Like, he's trying to get over to the camp faster. If you hesitate for even 1 second against T1, they will obliterate you. It won't even look close. Keria was so ready to follow up here as well. Owner goes in, drops his ultimate so they can push the issue further. The Sun Disc is up, and that's just the end of it. There's no counterplay at that point. Like, you had to be a little bit more on the spot than that. The fact that Pyosik was running over to Wolves and pressing W to get there faster meant they had no idea T1 was about to strike. A little bit of a bizarre situation there for DNF, and Pyosik almost gets the kill on the door and gets his flash. Small victory, but now Otacon goes to T1, which isn't that useful for them right now, but it would have been so huge if DNF could have picked it up.
No, agreed. And it does mean that now a lot of adaptive damage. There's a lot of extra
Level
experience now on T1. Yeah, like you were talking about, level leads in top and jungle and mid, even in the AD carry position. But these solo lanes being ahead is such a big deal. And DNF, as the game sort of neutralizes, though, are able to get into the lanes and actually farm things out. This gold lead isn't, like, you know, the surmountability level is still not catastrophic.
Sure.
But the problem is, every single one of these fights, it looks like DNF don't have an answer. Like, they don't even have a game plan as to how they're supposed to stop Carrier, Faker, and Ona from just going in and killing them.
It's always a question of, for DNF, for me, not the numbers, not the gold, not the CS, but what the champions do in a fight, or what they don't do, and if they show up together. You know, it's a coordination issue. As Life will find out that Carrier is taking his vision away.
Yep. The control ward in there. Is Carrier going to get bled a little?
Dudu does have TP. If they do go a little bit too deep here, T1, but Baron has spawned, and now they can just say, well, we already have all the vision we need. We don't need to chase for kills. We don't force the issue any further. Dudu also doesn't have a turret he can get here. It's going to take a little bit longer for that, so I think T1 are happy to just chill and keep putting up these control wards as best as they can. Try to force an issue.
See whether DNF can actually secure their red buff. That's going to be an important thing. As Life goes in, gets a pulverized, but I don't know about this one. Berserker trying to get these autos off, and they're not actually able to get onto him. As Pyosik as well, pretty happy that he can get untargetable, but he's flashing away. Was lit on fire in that tiny amount of time that Carrier had available.
Guma doesn't even have to ult in this situation, and they're like, all right, well, that's it, that's Baron.
Wait, he wasn't even lit on fire because there's a heal on this Rakan. That's just the burn.
Yep, it's just that.
That is insane.
But, I mean, that was, again, the lack of coordination here for DNF. They're going to go for one more Hail Mary. Okay, They decide not to because their jungler is nowhere near, and I think this is wise.
But I mean, you can't just give everything because then you just lose the game. Equalizer goes down, and it's T1 that are engaging. The Shockwave lands on absolutely nothing, and Dudu is now in trouble. The Gwen not feeling as powerful as she once was, and will be taken out there by Ona. And it's fight after fight after fight. T1 on top every single time. And the early game feels like it's so far away, Wolf.
It's even just these skirmishes where T1 get a big enough lead that they could just force the issue further. That is so overwhelming, it seems like, for DNF. They just cannot deal with it. They're not able to even play the vision juggle game. They're not able to play the red buff juggle game without catastrophic results. And Faker can solo the Chemtech Dragon, which he will do here with no consequences. And, I mean, T1 have the whole map. They have Baron. And what once was a small gold deficit, like you said, feels so far away the early game. As we skip out on the fight, I think that matters more than this one. You know, I feel like I'll just kind of ignore this because we just saw this one, but the last fight where Pyosik was going in, where no one was there to follow up, the rest of the team wasn't able to actually get on top of Guma, and Guma doesn't even have to press R. Like, that's the fight that leads to them doing the Baron, to just walk down and be like, oh, you guys were hanging out or near the Baron, and we kill you. You didn't fight us there, you didn't have the tools, but you were still too nearby. T1 are like, thanks for the bonus exit kill as the third death for Pungyan. And now T1 just pushing to look for some inhibitors here.
Yeah, and still a minute and a half left on this Baron. The Rebel Baron power play only going to increase from here as a bit of a zoning equalizer just to soften them up and convince them that this inner turret is not worth fighting for. And understandably, DNF will agree with them. Does mean that now there isn't a equalizer for the next little bit of sieging. But we'll see whether T1 just try and force anyway, because Ona is so incredibly scary. Does find the wind becomes lightning onto Pungyan.
Pungyan has his ult, but he's level 14. Faker is level 17, so I don't think they're that concerned about it.
No. And it hasn't really been hitting the right targets recently anyway, as inhibitor number 1 to go down, the second one short to follow. And DNF, I mean, they didn't look like they had much of an idea in the first few fights. I don't know whether much has changed now, as Pyosik deciding to dive forward. Does get the stopwatch out of Doran here. does break his arm guard, but he's very close to his Zhonya's, so doesn't need to worry about that one too much.
And Pyosik, doesn't have his ult anymore either, which obviously when you compare the two, like the arm guard is more valuable in the long term, but I just don't know if there is any long term. And now T1 know that they're just like, okay, well, we can keep pushing, and there's no way Pyosik can get on top of somebody. Like even Guma's like, let me auto this Orianna. I don't care. I have flash ult, and you don't have a Fury ult.
Yeah, and Faker and Carrier are just looking for their opportunity to scoop someone up. Carrier to get them in position, and then Faker just to finish it off as the equalizer goes down. Life goes in. There's a shockwave connecting onto two, but I think it's too little, and it's almost definitely too late as Ona going forward, tanking up two turrets as Life does get the pulverize onto Guma, who will eventually go down. That was actually an absolutely sick play. They trade 1 for 1. DNF's base are in shambles.
They saved the top inhibitor. They saved the top inhibitor.
Yeah, but that did look pretty cool.
Yeah. We'll see if we get to see a replay of it or not, but T1, just the better team fighting this game. It's not over until it's fully over, right? But T1 at this point, kind of playing with their food a little bit here. The owner looking for an angle onto Berserker, ends up getting isolated, goes in here with Keria, and then Pungyan has to flash. It's actually a really good flash by him. Owner then has to flash away. Life with a really nice play here onto Guma, and they rip him off the map. That was actually a sick play. Life with no fear. His Nexus, his base is in shambles, but he will look for the angle. They will look for that 80 carry, and they will take Guma out. But again, it's just a consolation prize at this point.
Yeah, it's not looking too great. Guma positioning there, obviously a little bit questionable in hindsight, but that is absolutely fine. T1 still in so much control. Faker going to be teleporting towards that top side of the map. Next Baron going to be a minute and a half. The Dragon, basically a non-factor at this stage, is no team with Soul Point yet, and it's an 8,000 gold lead approximately for T1.
Everybody's doing their job here on T1. Faker's had a pretty good game. He's been able to shut down a lot of the engages. Keria.
All right, Life going in. Keria is just going to say, okay. And Ona not going to be able to steal away the red buff. So Pyosik does at least get that prize for his team. Dudu also with Zhonya's now completed. That is kind of cool. As Faker goes in, finds Pungyan one more time, and I just don't think he has any way out. In fact, he does not, as Faker goes golden, and the red carpet is there. Life unable to walk down that one. That's a little too hot. Gets cooked anyway by Doran here, as now Ona goes in with a nice knock up onto Dudu. He has the miss down, but I still just don't think he's going to be immune. And there it goes. Pyosik on the fountain. The Sand Soldiers say, you are dead. And T1 will dominate in the end of game number 1. The DN Freaks woes continue here in the LCK.
And a big statement win here from T1, bouncing back after that bro loss. They still need to win one more to take the series, but after what was a bit of a rocky start, let's say, for T1 with that early game skirmish, Life finding Doran in the bottom lane, T1 fans definitely sighing a little breath of relief after what looked like it could have been a rocky mid-game, but they handled it so well. And the woes of the 5v5s here for the DN Freaks continue, and I'm really glad you highlighted it at the beginning of the day, because it's just such a bad matchup for them in terms of what T1 is best at, is those scrappy fights, those late game objective fights, and I think that's what, unfortunately, DN Freaks is worst at right now in the LCK.
Yep. Haters gonna hate, players gonna play. You love that on the fan sign there for T1. Certainly having to deal with a lot of ups and downs as far as reactions to things. This, though, was definitely, for me, Faker and Ona playing out of their minds. Carrier as well, having just one of his phenomenal Rakan performances. These are the champions to look out for on T1, and they showed you exactly why they are to be feared. Just looks like Ona can do absolutely no wrong on Xin Zhao. Like, I think it feels illegal that they didn't go for that ban.
How does he get it? Like, how does he keep playing it?
Well, also, like, why does Pyosik decide that he wants to pick Nefiri second on red side? But that is, once again, a hindsight situation. The early game went okay, and the DN Freaks now get blue side. We're going to go to a short break. When we get back, the Space is going to break that one down, and we'll have game number 2. We'll see you soon.
막아도 돼 이거?
있나?
안 되지.
오케이.
트리 노점. 오리 노플이지.
우리도.
나 오리 거리 되는데 이거.
혹시.
뭐가 있다?
알리도 노플.
우리는 잡긴 했어.
나필 노공.
앞라인부터.
웬 공들고 있다.
근데
그러네. 그러게. 웬.
노플이야 그웬.
Of game one.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of very high priority champions that have now hit the bench. Something like a Sejuani and, you know, Skarner as well, stocks for the Scorpion going up.
Jace still available, of course, for potential first pick for Dudu. I think that'll probably be banned away with the Vi here in second phase because on blue side, DNF decided to ban Kalista, so that gives T1 an extra little spot there. Vi is non-negotiable, so that's not a shocker to see.
Yep.
A little bit surprised to see the Talia ban, considering what Chronicler had to say there, but I guess they thought Pyongyang would just take it away.
Yep, I think it's very first pickable.
Yeah.
The Poppy is still up as well, which I think is another important one to think about here.
I think they'll probably just ban Jace, though. I do think that Poppy is very strong, and I think in the hands of a lot of our really strong teams, can be an incredible tool. I mean, even some of our lower level teams, like we saw Sponge get a ton of value out of it yesterday on DRX. But Jace gets banned, and Berserker, he's the main character. He's going to get his Varus lock in.
All right, let's see what they can actually do with this Varus pick. Of course, very, very strong, like you say, but does now give T1 a lot of opportunity to take a 1-2 punch in response. Could just be a bottom lane that they take away. You can see a bit of a grin on Ona's face there as well. I wonder what he is considering.
Yeah, I mean, he might be thinking about the Skarner pick here. It's still very strong, even though it hasn't been as favored recently. The victor here for Faker is very safe. Faker has liked to keep his champion pool where it is. He hasn't really strayed outside of the big main mids. You're not seeing too much Silas out of Faker, seeing the Galio work out for him. And I like just a safe victor pick here in terms of the tier list and Faker's comfort.
Yep.
As the jungle pick is the big question here, although, like you said, they could just go for the bottom lane. And it'll be Guma's Jhin to come through. A pick I think he's really improved a lot on, and is definitely a bit of more comfort for him.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Gumyushi's always been just good at, and you can also equalize the range, even extend it versus that Varus. So I kind of like that. As Pyongyang, we're having a look at what he is going to be piloting here in the Rise, potentially. Wonder whether this is going to be a mid-jungle lock-in, of course, with the Victor face-up. You now get your opportunity to pick something into it. We've seen a lot of people take the Silas angle. Pyongyang not going to go for that one. This time around, it will be the Rise instead, and you can see some nodding along here by Pyoshik.
On one hand, I like this more than Silas because I think if you fall behind or you lose control, as we'll see Pyoshik's Viego to come out. More on that later, but what I do like about this Rise is it gives you side lane power, it gives you a lot of agency even if you're behind, but it's going to require coordination to use its full potential, and that is where DNF have not really been at their best, as this is a flex pick of this Pantheon. Will likely be jungle, but it is still open-ended how they want to play this one out, so that's a cool little boon for them.
I was kind of hoping that it was going to be triple flex Poppy instead in third rotation there, because it would have kind of been okay in the jungle matchup. You don't know what the top lane matchup is yet, but it could be that Dudu takes something that's a little bit poppyable, like a Jax. And Carrier is also always able to play it. I think now should definitely get banned away.
Do you think so? I wonder if there's any interest in trying to isolate Doran more in this top lane. As they'll ban Elise here, so also expecting that is going to be jungle Pantheon. And that could be one of the champs that could give you issues in the bottom lane. But I feel like with Varus and any ranged champion, and even with most melees, you feel pretty good into the Elise. But they're scared of Carrier's Elise here.
Yep.
I think it's a fair ban. Not the best necessarily, but not a bad one. Let's see what this final ban is going to be here. So banning the Mbessa away.
I actually thought that we'd be more likely to see a Gnar ban. I just feel like Dudu's about to play Gnar. That's where my waters are at.
Yeah, because it's just super safe, and you need that safety. The draft that also scales really well has already the Rise for side lane power. I'm kind of with you on that one.
Where's the Poppy ban? I don't think they should get Poppy.
I don't know if you want to play Poppy into Varus necessarily.
Uh-huh. So I guess maybe they're assuming they're not willing to pick support Poppy, which is probably what it would be, given the fact that the support Pantheon hasn't necessarily worked out so well.
But that is the flex that you have here as T1. Like they could make it work. They're going to ultimately go for Leona instead, which has a lot of synergy. I always love Jhin comps that have really strong engage. They have Pantheon, they have Leona now. That's more robust and more long range of a single target engage than the Poppy is. Still incredibly tanky, like Poppy with the Eclipse. So I like this a lot because what Faker is on is just a control mage that does boom boom damage. That he's not really going to be setting up the Jhin. He's not going to be buying space for the Jhin. But now they have two champions that are really annoying to deal with that give Guma that space. As the Rel is going to be the answer here. A lot of counter engage potential here in DN Freaks, and if you burst somebody down, Pyosik starts getting those resets. Can be quite strong. Is it just going to be the Gnar? I'm feeling it.
I'm hoping that it is. You know, keep it simple. Would make some sense here. Give Dudu some comfort.
It's not Zeus on the other side this time.
Oh, instead, blind Jax into the top lane. I mean, that just invites like an R5 Poppy angle.
Yeah, or even an R5 Gnar feels pretty good here for Doran. GP was one of the ones that King would lock here.
Oh, the Malphite, that's fun.
Trundle. That's great with Jhin. Unironically, I feel like it's pretty good. I don't think that's, yeah, I don't think that's what he's necessarily going to lock here, but I like to see Doran flex a little bit.
Yeah, instead Doran is just going to take a leaf out of our book and lock in the Gnar. Depends on who you talk to about how the Jax-Gnar matchup goes, but should be relatively even up there towards the top side and does give you a lot of teamfight power if you can get that Mega Gnar timing to work out. We know Doran's best thing is teamfighting. Yeah. And so him on the Gnar, he often is pretty good at making sure that Gnar bar is in the right spot.
It's hard to punish this Gnar pick with Viego. You know, there are other junglers that can be very threatening and punish a mini Gnar. Viego doesn't always quite reach with the hop available, so I feel like you feel pretty safe in the top 2v2 as well with the Pantheon there. And the conversation about Jax beating Gnar, it's really only like our top 3 or top 4 top laners that say the Jax can win. And I would not really be putting Dudu in that quadrant at the moment. And what could have been a safe, difficult to counter Gnar pick, very difficult to punish by T1, is now this Jax that can be incredibly difficult to deal with in sides later on, absolutely, and can be a big threat for the Jhin. There's just so many other tools to buy space and to lock that Jax down, and then the top lane matchup is going to be tough as they are praying.
Oh, yeah.
It says, if you win today, I'll forgive you for everything.
And is the everything, is that the Yongso? Is that
Yongso's forgiveness, yeah.
All right. So that's the one that was highlighted in red there, ladies and gentlemen, just to make sure that they hammered that one home. We'll see whether it is going to be a victory here today. It's going to have to be in this game because T1 are on match point in this best of 3. Let's see whether DN Freaks can pull themselves together here in game number 2.
시간사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, onto the Rift for the second game of the series. I'm expecting the DN Freak's going to look kind of okay for the first 10 minutes. That's my really aggressive take.
Yeah, a little out there.
I know. I'm known to really go out on a limb.
I mean, look, for the true DNF doomers out there, because there are a lot of them because they're 0 and 8.
Oh no, not the Troomers.
They're not seeing, because they're too blind by their anger at the 08. They can't actually see the stable laning phase. But you and I see it, okay? Like, you and I know, like you and I both knew as well when they had some pretty big leads in that game. We're like, well, let's see how this ends because I'm not confident. But the laning is never really where disaster strikes. I'm not saying it's never happened, but it usually doesn't happen in the laning phase. You know, we're not seeing Berserker getting owned in the 2v2, even though Life had some weak performances in LCK Cup. We're not seeing Dudu getting solo killed every game. You know, it's Punyan and before him, Bulldog, having fine mid lane matchups. You know, it's just what happens when we get out. And I have a broken record on this, but it just, DNF keep being a broken record. So as a commentator, sometimes you just have to keep saying it. I hope we don't have to say it for the whole year, but something has to change for us to stop.
You will get a lot of practice saying it though, so at least you'll get really good at saying it. So there's that. Like we were talking about, some okay laning. As Gumishi going to be able to clear up that last minion, but Berserker pretty comfortable here as he's sort of stuck in a 1v1, as that was a little cute there from Life. Love tap and then crash away. But it looks like T1 will be gaining that level 2. DNF going to have to give up control of the wave, but not going to be able to lose too much, and so everything is going to be fine. So far, top side of the map, Dudu has actually been putting on the pressure, as that minion not being found there really shows some missed synergy between the two laners on DNF's side. A little bit of a worry, but we are going to be able to get most of the rest. Turret going to mess up that last one, but it's okay for Berserker.
Yeah, pretty stable down there. Pretty stable here in the mid lane as well, as we have a bit of a fight.
Yeah, Carrier is very, very strong, but not after the Aftershock wears off. So that Piercing Arrow actually doing a lot of work. And to be honest, Varus into Leona kind of feels all right, because you can backload a lot of your damage if you hold on to those Blight stacks and wait until after the Eclipse and the Aftershock wear off before you pop it. So it's actually kind of cute with how that one works, assuming that you have the ability to do so, and he hasn't just engaged on you and you're dead, which could also...
It's a big caveat.
There's definitely some yeah buts in there.
Yeah. It looks like the topside matchup is going very well for Dudu. Maybe I shouldn't have doubted him as one of the Jaxes who could win the Gnar matchup early in the first few level series.
I mean, there was a time where we'd be like, Dudu, one of our best.
He was a top 3 top laner. He was
amazing.
He was top 3. He was.
Well, now he's also going to get some attention from his jungler. Pioshik going to be walking over a ward here, though, as Ona does cancel that back. Ward goes in, Pioshik goes out. Information gathered, and it looks like Dudu is just going to be able to shove that wave in and go for a little bit of a reset. So that's a great start to this lane for the Jax. As Pungyan going to be spotted there by the ward Faker just put down, so he's going to be a little delayed on his reset. No harm, no foul.
It's a little scary, even though they have a lot of ward coverage. I'm like, I'm going to walk a little bit more left before I channel this recall. If Faker stopped me there, Owner might be lurking, but a lot of information will finally channel that back. Faker, full health is, here we go. Bit of an exchange again.
Yeah, Doran going to be losing some health bar, but of course he has a little bit of extra space, right? Because he does have his teleport still available. Probably shouldn't die right here.
No.
As the Empower does come through, Crush gets him out, but now the teleport back in from the Gnar is a lot more scary. There is a biscuit or two and a potion. But you can see Dudu already going to have to go for a reset here.
If the Mega Gnar wants to interact with you like that before he has items, like you're winning the trade, because he's in melee with you as Jax, he can't space you. But if you use teleport, he didn't, then you win the trade, but are you really winning when Doran shows up with full HP in the bottom lane and you have to walk?
It also is kind of cute, right? Because they kind of faked a potential... No, never mind. It was Doran actually starting off the lane swap, so Dudu actually just going to change his mind, walk over towards the bottom side, gets that wave shoved in, evens out the CS quite nicely as the Rune Prison is pretty good there from Pungyan, but not going to land the follow-up Q.
That was just a good lead here for T1 in terms of the tempo, and Dudu had a nice little exchange there with Doran, but ultimately it doesn't matter too much here as he had teleport disadvantage, but still remains even in farm.
Ooh, Pioshik. Seeing what he can get done on this top side. Ona's Pantheon has been another one of his good champions. Like the Xin and the Pantheon have been just so amazing.
He likes it when the enemies can't hurt him when he presses a button.
Yeah, he does seem to utilize those buttons relatively well.
You should play Gwen jungle.
Throw it in here. It's a fair bit of damage onto Gumayushi, as we can see. Captive audience going to connect there as Doran going aggressive. Does have level 6, but the wallop not going to land, and he just used the ulti on the Jax a few moments prior as Pungyan, I think, loses out on that trade. The Chaos Storm going to get redirected towards the minions. Pioshik starting off these grubs, might be able to get that first one pretty comfortably. Let's see whether they can get more.
Yeah, he wants to get it without smiting, of course. The top trade going so well for Berserker, actually hitting all that damage on Naguma really allows for this to happen here for Pioshik, so he's feeling very good about this. In fact, should be able to secure 2 at least.
Yeah, nicely done.
For the second, and see, Owner is already heading down, so Pioshik knows he can commit to this third grub here, and I don't think there's going to be any punish whatsoever on the top side. As Pungyan remembered that his ultimate was not a combat ultimate and did end up losing out to Faker, but got his ult in exchange.
Yep. Dudu probably should know that there's a likely jungler towards his bottom side, as he's going to have to leap strike his way over, and all right, that'll do it. He's just fine.
Nice timing on that.
Yep, I guess he just knew that he wasn't in any danger as the Ignite already down onto Gumayushi. He's going to flash. This dive is dangerous, but still able to pick it up. Life just deciding that he's going to have to sacrifice himself as Carrier gets another kill. And Berserker not going to be able to challenge him for that one. So that, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is a disaster.
Yeah, on one hand, I get it, because you saw the enemy jungler on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah.
So he wasn't there. On the other hand, that's a Leona.
Yeah.
So, and that's a turret, and they ramp, and, you know.
And I think Life actually played it as best he could, right? Like, he picks up the turret aggro, and, you know, they make sure that they can still take down Gumayusi after the flash, but then, yes, he dies.
And then the wave is thin.
The wave is thin, so the turret is still coming in. So
Faker, I mean, sorry, not Faker. Carrier does commit the flash there, which is one trade back. It's also 2 kills to a Leona now in this game, so that's not where you want the gold necessarily. But the kill didn't go to Berserker. I think Pioshi picking up the kill isn't the worst because he is playing Viego, but Berserker is the main character, let's be real.
Yep.
I think DNF fans were hoping that was going to be his pickup there, and I think that was the game plan with the gank, but...
I mean, I think actually the kill going to Pioshik is much better. I understand the thought process completely, but you're not a champion if you're Viego and you're not a threat. So.
I do agree with you in terms of what Viego is supposed to do, but nameplates on, I'm concerned.
Yeah. There's that Paperman conversation that you coined, of course. That does turn into a bit of a problematic situation. Faker dodged basically every Q, which is pretty impressive. Doran finding the combo onto Dudu here towards the bottom side.
Faker demonstrating that, you know, in his champion pool that he plays this season, which is somewhat small, he has great mastery.
Oh, yeah. And he has great mastery over a lot of champions, as we know. He's been playing this game a while. But the Victor certainly something that he is having a lot of success on. And you also just generally get outranged as the Rise.
Yeah. And
in this matchup anyway, so it's just a bit of a rough one.
Not respecting, but Pioshik is going to come over here.
Yeah, there's the flash in. As I don't know about the angle on the stun. The gravity field's fantastic there as well. And Faker going to have to flash because there is a shattering strike coming on over. And Pioshik gets his second of the game.
All right, maybe it was good that Viego got the kill, you know?
Yeah, he's pretty scary now.
He may miss the flash stun, but still going to get a kill onto Faker there in the end, in part due to Life being in the area and rotating down. So that was a really nicely coordinated and called out play. We saw a few more moments like this in the LCK Cup, you know? Like we saw DNF do a lot of this with Bulldog where they're baiting and setting up for something, you know, Pioshik shows up or Life shows up and they end up getting these exchanges. Pioshik missing here gives Faker the confidence that he can flash away, but Life is also here. So ultimately it still goes down, tries to look for a trade kill, but doesn't find it. Using his flash on the play, really important here because this Victor is now very immobile and very at risk of a follow-up gank of any kind.
And that's also the reward that DNF got by holding all of their flashes on the top side of the map, right? Like, Life could have flashed out of turret range. That would have made sure that it was Pioshik that died. Pioshik could have flashed to try and get his way out after the Heartbreaker, but I think the turret shot was even in the air. But they didn't have to use any of them, right? So Pioshik gets to use it in that fight. Obviously, the flash looked a little comical, but it was because Faker walked forward.
Yeah.
And that means he's dead anyway. So DNF setting up for these plays quite nicely. Life, of course, his position fantastic there. But T1's still going to be able to get themselves the first Dragon of the game. And next one going to be a Chemtech. So no back-to-back Chemtech souls, which we like to see. As Doran's spacing there pretty nice into the Counter-Strike.
See a small lead here for Berserker. Pioshik looking for more grubs here. They have full control over this pit. Faker doesn't have his flash. I don't think he's going to come down. They're going to look for a bottom play here instead on the Dudu.
Yeah. The Gnar stun into the turret, and Dudu does manage to at least get the Counter-Strike back as he throws down the ulti. Doran will need to pick up turret aggro, but I think that was a level up for Dudu. Look at him, eating through these cookies, feeling a whole lot better, but still, he's going to get taken down. Nice little huff to get Doran out of there, and it was a good attempt. Yeah,
it was nicely played there from Dudu. Really nice flash timing. Bought a lot of time, but now they need to make something happen here top side. They do end up with 6 grubs here, but I think they want a little bit more. Turret plate gold will feel nice, but I just don't think they can actually get anything done with carry up here top side.
This is going to be feats of strength if Doran is able to take down this turret.
And so far, you know, there's no answer. Dudu does not have teleport. If he clears this next wave, he might actually be able to get it. As Dudu has, of course, flash and Counter-Strike and waits until the last possible second here. Doran is backing away, thinking, okay, I need to drop this turret aggro. And then on the second dive, obviously, Doran just needs to pick this one up, so needs to play it very carefully, and that he does. Picks up the aggro before Owner. Owner secures the kill. But nice footwork there to at least force the second dive. And it then bought them more time to try to make something happen top side. I wish they didn't, but they got 6 grubs. which if a Jax gets any alone time in a side lane with those turrets is going to feel amazing here for the DN Freaks. Also a pretty fast pushing Rise as well. Will feel really happy if he's left alone in the side lane. Just ask BDD.
Deadly Flourish coming on down here as Gumayusi with a lot of damage onto Berserker, and now the curtains have been called. Let's see how the do-si-do goes here for Berserker as Solar Flare goes wide. That's a lot of ultis going in directions that they didn't really want to go, but still, that is a lot of pressure onto the DN Freaks 80 carry. Doran still realizing that things are a little bit difficult here in the 1v1 as there's the Magnet Storm. He tries to get himself out. Heartbreaker comes forward. There is the Grand Skyfall, and Dudu goes down once again. Doran is still alive, and Pyoshik's on the wrong side of the map. A disastrous dive attempt here as Gumayusi down towards the bottom side, and the Wallop will take down the Rel. And things are going wrong a little earlier this time around for the DN Freaks.
Yeah, this time, similarly to the top dive, they looked for the turret is their worst enemy, and Doran just is totally fine up there. And unlike the last time, they don't end up finding any success with their plays. Pungyan is now also 100% dead.
Yeah, the Realm Warp, an immediate Chaos Storm interruption as Pungyan realizes that he may as well try and clear the wave. And he does do that. He is surviving for quite some time, but that's another gravity field actually in the same little skirmish.
Yeah.
Kind of cute. Dudu down towards his bottom side will be able to at least save the sliver of health on this turret. Let's have a look at this fight one more time.
Has Flash. Still gets caught, pops over, and then just walks back towards the turret here when the follow-up Heartbreaker comes through from Pyoshik. Like, they really wanted to force it. I don't know how else to say it, but in this case, they could have played a little bit slower, but they knew the rotation would come through if they slow played, and they just felt really priced into that. I don't know if they should have, but ultimately that decision really backfiring. Because if they get him with 6 grubs, that turret's gone. You know, you deny that part of Feats of Strength for T1, who have the Feats of Warfare already unlocked. Like, it would have been a really nice play, but just not quite enough damage there, not quickly enough, and Doran handles it really well, hops, and then goes back towards the turret correctly instead of running top, which would have actually meant his demise.
Yeah, and now Gumacaria able to clear things out in this river, as the Jax might be able to get to this turret in time to stop it from going down, but it is very low. You can see the teleport coming in from Doran, and he just wants to finish this one off, but there is no wave, so he takes a turret shot for fun, and Carrier, he's going to turn up. Solar Flare doesn't connect. The Rel is in the area, but Dudu is still going down incredibly low. Good Shattering Strike there just to get him out, but now Pungyan having to deal with some attention on the top side as the stun comes through, and Pyoshik not going to be here in time. Just elects to get himself stunned as they take down the Rise yet again.
And that's Feats of Strength with the turret going down bottom side here. It's a very, you know, it's a moment you can zoom out and be like, all right, where is everyone on the map? And Pyoshik is neither defending, you know, his mid laner who's top side, nor is he defending the turret they committed a teleport for. Or actually, no, it was not a teleport they committed there, so my bad on that one. I thought they did actually commit to try to save that turret teleport-wise. Doran who commits in, and then they take it with Carrier's help. But that's one thing that didn't go as badly as I thought here for DNF, but still end up losing out on both sides of the map. And that shouldn't be happening even with the lead that T1 has. Now the lead's even bigger. Now they have Feats of Strength.
No, it's absolutely absurd.
And
it's a 4-0 Pantheon as well. It's the fact that the best performing player on T1 now has a gigantic lead.
Yeah. It's such a frustrating game to play out here, as it looks like DNF will at least get this Dragon back, trade it for a 1-for-1. We'll see what the Soul is, as it's not going to be Chemtech 2 games in a row, so at least that's a thumbs up for me, but...
Yep, it's going to be a Mountain Soul.
Okay.
But Faker's going to be taking down this outer turret. I mean, this is 6 grubs for DNF, and they're losing structures all over the map.
If you can't hit the turrets, they don't really end up getting much value, do they?
Yeah, this is the problem with the grub situation. Sort of, it's a bit of a win-more scenario. And we remember the early stats for the 6 grubs. It was, what, 30% win rate or something like that?
I think it was even worse.
It was definitely very low.
But it usually means that the enemy team got something out of the 6 grubs you took, and that's exactly what T1 did. And winning on both sides of the map for T1, and then, okay, you got the Dragon, but Faker got a turret. You know, these are the kind of trades you want to take as T1 when you're already up a Dragon, so losing a Chemtech solo Dragon to be tied in Drakes isn't really an issue for you. Now they have Cryo on this Rift Herald. We'll see a teleport here from Pungyan, and this may be the last stand here, the last fight for DNF.
Yep, Life is just going to move in, already down to half health. As a teleport from the Jax to deliver him to the middle of this fight. It's going to be an honest 5v5 as Faker makes his way down. Boomerang value actually quite high there as the Flak Magnustorm comes in from Life. They're going to see whether they can get the first kill in this fight. It's so important. The transformation is fantastic, but the first kill, it was T1's, and they line it up with a couple more as well. Now the curtains are being called. The Grand Starfall comes down, and Berserker, I don't think he's winning this battle against Owner, as Owner may actually get taken out here as Punyan's over the wall, but instead he just flashes his way out of there. And T1, they only sacrifice Doran and they take everything.
Yeah, Doran also played the fight out incredibly well. You mentioned the transformation and tanked so much in the early part of the fight. No resets for Pyosik, no angle to pop off on this Viego. And that's a Herald getting a charge here in mid, and they're looking for even more.
Yeah, Life. Underneath this turret, they do manage to get the secondary charge from Shelly before she does go down, as Punyan desperately trying to deal with the wave. He does manage to do that as Faker takes a couple of turret shots, but this Gravity Field plus Deadly Flourish combination that T1 are using just looks very difficult to deal with.
It's super frustrating. T1 prove again that they're super good at objective setup and team fights. And this is just one of those fights where, as DNF, you feel like you just can't give up everything. You can't give up literally every objective that aren't grubs.
Solar Flare as well.
Solar Flare's clean. Doran's transformation just locks Dudu in place, and he goes down. And unfortunately, Viego, no ability to transform, no kills, no resets until Doran dies and the fight is already over. And then Owner here is just so far ahead on this Pantheon, he doesn't care. Cares a little bit about that Q to come through from Punyan does ultimately flash away, even though it was a funny angle. But like, it's just these types of fights that remind you that T1 is a world-class, defending world champion back-to-back team. And you give them a small angle, you give them control over an objective, and you try to just force the fight there, they win those.
Yeah, and now it's a 7.5 thousand gold lead, and something that DNF have not been able to handle against any other team in the LCK, and this team is called T1, and they have themselves in a really good spot. 5-0-3 for this Pantheon. I have a feeling I understand where POM may be projected to go.
Yeah, I think it might starfall right into my Palm selection paper over here.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, that could even be a Palm comment right there, or a Palmet. Good point
yesterday.
Palmet,
so sick.
That's a very good one. As Carrier doesn't quite find the ulti onto Life. Just gets himself out.
I mean, now T1 with this Jhin comp can really do no wrong. I mean, they can take any angle they want. And Pantheon goes in, 2 items, 5 kills, and Guma just presses R and follows up from so far away. There's just never going to be a punish. There's never going to be an angle, unless there's a flanking Jax, but T1 have all the angles covered. Look at the ward control, the vision control, the Jhin traps everywhere.
Yeah, there's not a lot of options here for the DN Freaks.
You know, captive audience can be quite useful for a lot of different things, but I'm not captivated right now here by DNF Freaks. Yeah, and I think the DNF audience, which is the section that we're on right now, is also not feeling captivated by the state of the game. And this is a reminder to everyone, they've won 3 games this season, and a loss here would be the 0-9 round robin, the winless one. And that's not what DNF wanted today. With a slumping T1, perhaps coming in mindset was good, but they just got outplayed by the team fighting and objective control that T1 has become world-renowned for. Punyan.
Here's a bit of aggression as Carrier does find the Zenith Blade. Flash out, and that's good respect to be shown there, but still they get a key summoner spell from this Rise. Doran, that was a bit silly, but who cares? He can do whatever he likes here on this bottom side of the map, just keeping the pressure up. Next Dragon is coming up in a couple of seconds, but it looks like this Arakan is what T1 want to look towards. Vision is there for the DN Freaks.
Yeah, Dudu does have teleport. Punyan has Realm Orb. And I said that last Hail Mary was going to be their last chance, but maybe there is a potential angle here. Life, no flash, though, to engage. This is going to be so tricky, and they're very split.
They really are. They just need to find something, some form of fight, even if they don't manage to deny this. As the Shattering Strike comes down, Doran's their target. They throw Pyosik just towards the rest of the team. And Ona just left there to deal with this Arakan. Very happily does so because he's under no threat. As, was that a potential Realm Warp angle? It was not.
I don't think so. And there's no angle to get flowers either. And so petals galore here.
Is that going to be a 3-level advantage for Faker in mid?
No, not quite.
Might be very close to. Oh goodness me, that is not a lot of fun Not one turret has been taken here by the DN Freaks.
Yeah, and it's just that type of fight, you know, where once Life is seen and they know he doesn't have flash because they're tracking his timer. He has it now, but he didn't then. They're just like, okay, well, Doran, you just deal with that. We just hold the choke point and Owner solos the objective, and there's no angle for DNF. There's just absolutely no way in. And then they take the auto, kind of walk away. It was just, you know, it was not that interesting in terms of the actual fight breaking out and kills going over, but in terms of technical league play, it was about as technical as it gets by T1. It's not leaving any openings.
Yeah, look at this. This is Doran just playing back, understanding that he's the one that's under threat. He was showing on the map, and nothing that Pyosik could do, no angle to be found there. And in fact, he's able to stop these backs with that Crush Gnar combo. Now the Starfall comes in. Pyosik
Isolated.
not going to be able to save this Rise, who had his flash removed earlier on. So that is just a very, very dead bald blue guy.
You see the, you know, preemptive angles there. You know, Doran stops the backs, so it looks like, oh, a bit of a whiff there from Doran. No, not true. He stops the backs, and then they have the Starfall follow-up. They isolate the Rise and take him out. As Duda will pick up some bounty gold here in the first turret of the game for them, but it's in trade for an inner. And T1, I don't think, are feeling too bad about it. With 6 grubs, though, Duda, if he gets enough time, might be able to take out a second one here.
Yeah,
if Faker's going to go respond.
If we disable the minimap of T1, then maybe, if Dudu is ignored for long enough, he can get a wave towards the Nexus.
Faker just comes over and says, well, that's the only turret you're going to take. And, okay.
Oh, Owner has found Life, but there is, Life's kind of into that, as Berserker just going to throw a bunch of autos into, okay, does he just win this? Oh god, Owner is so scary. There is 990 gold going over to Pyosik once again as the Deadly Flourish comes down. Carrier could be dead. The resets are starting to come in. But perhaps the curtains have now been called. Dudu going to soak one of them. Pyosik soaks another as he heartbreaks his way out. So that's all they're going to get. Still, I guess it's a sign of maybe an overstep on the T1 side.
Happy game, little Hanwha gaming right there.
Yeah.
Taking a little page out of the Hanwha playbook as Owner shakes his head on the player cam. I think he just was like, all right, well, I thought we actually, maybe we miscalculated, maybe he thought Faker had teleport or something, and he's like, oh, okay, I'll just hold him here. You come over here, and we'll clean up the fight. Still ends up getting an insane amount of value. You know, 1v3 here ultimately. And then Carrier comes over to try to salvage the play as Doran's rotating over, but again, neither of the Soul Laners had teleports, so this was, as they say, not the play. Although, is it enough to get DNF back in the game alone? No. That turret isn't enough to get them back into the game alone? No, but if T1 do start to stack up some big mistakes, I suppose there could be a world. But right now, not going to predict that outcome. 7,000 gold behind here for the DN Freaks.
But it's only 250 gold in the 80 carry position.
True.
That's all I got. That's where the cope ends, unfortunately.
He only has 1 death, Berserker.
Yeah. As Doran as well. Gnar in a good spot here. I don't think Pungyan and Dudu are going to be doing anything to stop this Gnar from pushing forward, as Owner will also be able to secure the blue buff for the team. Bounties are up, and remember they were up when Dudu was able to take that outer turret. That might be why the gold lead has shrunk just a little bit.
It's a little bit, you know, obviously trading up in that fight too. Doran, 2 levels up.
Yeah, Pungyan gonna have to at least put him in some runic prison. He does manage to do that.
Area does have ult, so he might get interested.
Yeah. Flash is back up here for Pungyan as Doran taking a lot of damage. Zenith Blade doesn't quite connect there as Carrier's the one tanking, but Pungyan's still dead. Oh dear, the wallets be heavy.
They certainly do, and with a very easy to set up follow-up there with the Leona tanking the turret. It's just as simple as that. And now Doran does have TP if he had to join this Baron fight. I don't think he's that interested though. I think he just wants to push this bottom wave in and start to then threaten there. As Life and Pyosik do show up, but it might be too late. Faker pulls off 4K on the Baron, and I just don't think there's any in here.
Nope, and Pyosik just backs away. They see the Chaos Storm, as we also see that we are indeed floating above Runeterra. Yeah, there was no real way. The Chaos Storm came down, Pyosik's like, I can't see in the storm, so I'm gonna have to leave. Teleport back down towards the bottom side. This is where Doran lives. He's got those upgraded shoes, 3 items, and like the third item for Dudu is a book. A silly
Yeah.
little book.
I mean, the third item for Doran is a Wit's End, but it actually makes a lot of sense into the Rise he's been laning into.
Yep.
And it basically just makes him immortal in team fights because he is also level 17.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah,
dude, it's just, he's not really having fun.
No. Life going to come on over and try and defend here as Pioshik as well, looking to try and put out fires where he can. It's a 4,000 gold lead in that top lane. As T1 look to siege this one out with their new Baron that they've put together. The Shattering Strike comes down once again. It's a very aggressive dive from Ona, who may actually get taken out here as Pioshik comes in. They do manage to get the kill on the Pantheon. The resets are starting to come in as Gumayusi could be in trouble. Pioshik is kind of scary, but it's Faker going absolute god mode here in the backline. Life going to be taken out. The Death Ray, my god, combined with the Curtain Call. T1 just say, yes, you do have a Viego, but unfortunately, it's not enough.
He's
to
dead
pull you
now.
through a team fight.
Yep, and T1 with this wave coming through should be able to slowly end this game. Berserker looking for the outplay.
Oh, does not get it. That's going to be another 300 over to Doran. Pungyan does manage to get that, but it is a very swift execution here by Gumayusi. And T1, 2-0 over the DN Freaks, and unfortunately, 3 games. The entire round robin, and unfortunately, none of them were in the same series. So the 0-9 has been achieved.
Yeah, the 0-9er given by Owner himself.
Oh, I see what you did there. That was cool.
Yeah, I tried to like make it a thing. Well, it didn't really land, but Owner had a great series.
He did.
Do think T1, while this was the expected result, looking a little bit more stable than they did into Bro. And Faker had a really great series as well. Had his ups and downs so far this year, but he did play the champs he is amazing at, and the Azir and Victor did not disappoint. I also think that Doran had a pretty good series as well. And this is, I will agree with Chronicler, not quite the level of T1 that won the World Championship. This is not the same roster, obviously, but the synergy is still not there. But I do think it's a step closer. Even though the caliber of opponent here was definitely lower than Bro, I think T1 also looked better today in general.
Yeah, I would agree. I also think that DNF didn't really push them as far as draft was concerned. Like, there's a lot of what you were saying there that really rings true, and that is, we saw Victor Azir from Faker. This is something that has been denied all the time. Even Xayah and Jhin, for this guy right here, they are 2 of his most iconic champions. This is a T1 that was able to play full comfort, and especially in Game 2, there's a reason why you take those champions away. I didn't even mention the biggest problem, which was the fact that Xin Zhao and Pantheon, 2 champions that we were listing earlier in the week, were the biggest problems on the patch, mainly because owners showed us why they're problems.
And they continue to show them here. Yeah, for the DN Freaks, I think there's a long season ahead, and hopefully by the middle part of it, when we get to the end of round 2, they'll have made some adjustments and we'll see some improvements there, as I don't think Pungyan is a problem. You know, we've seen a lot of young players come in and just not quite be able to perform. Pungyan is finally playing against other mid laners than Chovy, because that's how he started, which was really sad. But is he a significant upgrade over Bulldog right now? I don't think so, but maybe he has more potential, and I think that's what the coaching staff has ultimately decided. But yeah, Pungyan doesn't solve a 5-man coordination problem, you know?
Yeah, that's the main takeaway, right? He may not be the problem, but he definitely isn't the solution.
Exactly.
And that's what the DN Freaks need. I don't even know whether it's necessarily we need to drastically change the champions, the players that are on our team. It's more that they need to figure out how to actually play together. I was kind of happy with what Life was doing throughout this series, which was just throw himself at T1 over and over again, because they do need to get more practice just starting fights and being able to coordinate and follow up together. They had a couple of opportunities here, but as we saw, it was only what T1 allowed them to have that the DN Freaks got their hands on in this series.
Yeah, ending moments here. Pretty textbook. Unfortunately, Pioshik is trying to look for resets in the backside while everyone else is looking for Faker. So there's a bit of a split in the fight here. Berserker's so low, he can't follow up. So Pioshik basically has to do it on his own. I don't think this is like a coordination issue. It's just T1 knew the fight was split super easy. Faker buys time, going golden. And as they take them out, it's a really easy follow-up here as Berserker does get to have one little fun attempt on Doran's life before the Nexus does fall. That's basically it.
Yeah, Ona already just having a little bit of a drink as they finish off the game. As he almost chokes because Doran makes the sick play.
And Owner just chilling, having a sip.
Yeah.
You know, that's the vibes you want to see. This guy has been our best jungler, in my opinion, this season, even though T1 is in the middle of the pack right now, standings-wise, to close out the round robin with a 5-4. I do think that Owner's jungle prowess cannot be denied. I think it is, it is just, frankly, he has been the most powerful. I do think there needs to be a little bit more attention given to him in draft. A lot of teams are kind of half going after Faker and trying to then otherwise ban meta picks. But, man, if you give Owner these champions that can't be damaged while they're using certain ability, he does kind of go forward. He goes forward and stays on top of you, and he wins POM.
Yep, pretty obvious one here, as Xin Zhao and Pantheon are so extraordinarily good, and he will lock down player of the match for the final one in the round robin number 1. I think you're exactly right. I think this guy is the only thing that's held T1 in the top 5. Because outside of that, I think that they might have lost some other matches, right? Because even in the matches that they weren't doing necessarily so well in, Owner was still performing exceptionally well. So I think it is, like, no understatement to say that he's been the best performing jungler so far in the LCK, and he's absolutely needed to.
He hasn't been pressed.
Where they are.
He hasn't been pressed, really. He hasn't been pressed. It has been other parts of T1 that have struggled and that he's, you know, tried to carry and lift the weight and has crumbled at times, but in their wins, it feels like it's coming up all Owner every time.
Yeah, this guy has looked absolutely fantastic. We'll now be able to get a conversation with him as well, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. Hear from what T1's plans are going to be moving into the second round robin as well, I think is going to be really important. And thankfully getting a win after that devastating loss against Bro, the fact that last week wasn't exactly the most fun, and then I believe going into the telecom war in their next matchup
Sunday
as well, which could be an interesting one. I mean, after this victory here, I feel less okay about KT, but we might have a series. I'm looking at my hands now and there's sort of nothing there, but you never know. Sometimes the telecom war just delivers.
Sometimes. Not sure if it will this time, but BDD, I think, and Cuz are going to be the ones that are driving the delivery truck if it is going to show up.
Yeah, let's see whether that does happen. I think we are getting closer and closer to the interview, and in fact, here it is right now, so let's throw it over.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Dear for the POM interview translation. We are here with Owner on the side of T1, who just defeated DN Freaks. Congratulations! Thank you, thank you. You secured a victory to wrap round 1. How do you feel? It was our last match of round 1 of the regular season. I'm just really relieved that we're able to close it out with a win, and we'll have to prep harder for the upcoming round. And after the defeat last match, what did the team discuss? I think we really slipped on our own mistakes, so I think we just had to really brush up on our basics, and that's what we tried to practice around. And in Game 1, you had an amazing gameplay with Xin Zhao, making some of us go, why leave Xin Zhao open? And since Vi is a must-ban pick, excluding her, if you had to blind pick jungle, is Xin Zhao the best choice? I think he would be considered a very high tier. And I think right now in the current meta, Xin Zhao does do really well in trades, which is quite important in the current meta right now. So does Xin Zhao not really have a matchup or a counter? I feel like in the current state, Xin Zhao definitely is the best option out there. And this is actually a strictly personal question by Helios, but why don't you ever use Secret Agent Xin Zhao? You know, I've actually tried it out a few times, but it's just really not my style. Yeah, he said you guys are besties from playing Arena together. I guess not. And looking at Game 2, well, Jungle Pantheon in the current state of the LCK has a very high win rate with 7 wins and 2 losses, and it's been played more often in the jungle than support. So what matchup or comp do you get the most out of this pick?
이제 궁극기를 활용해서 이제 사이드.
I think just considering how you can pressure a lot of the side lanes with the ult, I think Pantheon is also considered pretty high tier in our opinion. So I think that's why we've been seeing a lot of him, and he has a pretty good win rate too. And Doran has reached 3,000 assists today.
네, 이제
Would you like to go ahead and congratulate him?
선수 축하드리고요. 네, 이제
Yeah,
또
Doran,
다음에는
congratulations.
현준 선수가 3,000 어시를 할 수 있게끔 열심히
Next
노력하겠습니다.
time,
현준 선수가 현준 선수에게
I will
주셨습니다.
make sure that
5승 4패로
you know we share the same name owner. I can also reach 3,000 assists just like you.
이제
And in round 2, what kind of performance do you want to show?
1라운드에서부터
You know, there's a lot of underwhelming moments in round 1, so we just want to make sure that we have a better win to loss ratio in round 2, making sure that we perform better.
제가 참 열심히 보고 있는데요.
You know, I am
소나트 애교를 제대로 배우셨더라고요. 그래서 오늘
I'm very
받았겠다. 1라운드도
so on your YouTube channel I saw how 권나라 taught you how to do the finger heart the right way. So since you got a POM today, please share what you learned with your fans.
삼정이요. 잘 부탁드리겠습니다. 자,
Yeah, the 3 different finger hearts.
삼정님
네.
뭔지 아시나요, 삼정이?
알죠. 알려드려요.
Do you know what the 3 different ways are? Do you want me to go ahead?
뭐가 많네요. 자,
No, my hands are full, so I think you'll have to show us.
하나, 둘. 나머지 뭐죠?
1, 2.
나머지 뭐죠?
What's the rest?
카메라 보고 해야죠. 하나, 시작.
Did I not do it at all? Look at the camera and do it again. Wow,
사랑합니다. 좋아요. 마지막 하나.
so good. I love you.
감사합니다.
And lastly, I love you. Yay!
POM 세레머니까지 해준 오너 선수에게 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Thank you so much. Give it up for Owner for that amazing performance, for that victory. And this upcoming Sunday, you will be at the Suwon Convention Center for the LCK Roadshow against KT. What mindset will you play with? No, last home ground, we had invited the opponent over and we had ended it with a loss, which was a bad memory, but I hope that we can get our revenge this time around, so we'll make sure to prep hard and put even more effort so that we can get a great result. And that's the end of the interview with Owner, and back to the space. Thank you.